coming up on Lawmakers. Legislation is expected on the Senate floor this week relating to courthouse security and the use of deadly force. Democrats say they want big business to do its part in reducing health care costs for the state. And students and professionals rally at the Capitol to protect their ability to treat anyone who seeks medical attention regardless of immigration status. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Gerald Bryant and Nwandi Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also on Lawmakers, Amy's Law passes out of a Senate committee. That measure would allow judges to use their discretion in applying stiffer penalties for juvenile defendants.
And the Senate votes to strengthen what one senator calls Georgia's weak child abuse reporting policies. But our lead story tonight, issues of security. 2 security-related bills are expected on the Senate floor within the next few days. Senator Joseph Carter sponsors Senate Bill 462, which would put courthouse security matters under the authority of the county sheriff's office. Senator Greg Goggins sponsors Senate Bill 396, which expands a citizen's right to defend himself if he feels that he's in danger. David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with the details. David.
Well, Nwandi, Senator Goggins' bill says that people should have the right to use deadly force, including a gun, if they believe their attacker means some great bodily harm or death. This situation would apply to any location that a citizen has a right to be in, meaning it is no longer their duty to retreat.
Either way you go, you're going to have the court system still involved. And as I heard one put it the other day, they said they would, if they're in danger and they're defending themselves or their lives, they would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So there's always going to be, just like there is now. But we want to give the law-abiding citizens maybe an upper hand here against the bad guys.
Senate Bill 462 is the result of a bipartisan study committee that Senator Carter also helped create. The committee was formed in response to the Fulton County courthouse shootings on March 11th of last year.
What it says is that we're going to provide flexibility to local communities by asking the sheriff in each county to develop a comprehensive security plan for the courthouse and annex buildings. As you know, many counties have such buildings that will be submitted to the Superior Court judge for their review and approval, and that will begin the process of making sure that our courthouses and annex buildings are secure.
Now, Senator Carter's courthouse bill is expected in the Senate Public Safety Committee tomorrow. Senator Goggins' right to defend bill is expected in Senate rules over the next couple of days. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
In other news, the state Senate today voted to speed up the process of reporting cases of suspected child abuse. Senator Dan Moody says Senate Bill 442 would make the law stronger and make Georgia's children safer.
The primary revision deals with the urgency in reporting suspected child abuse. Today, if a teacher or nurse believes that a child has been abused, they must report their suspicion as soon as possible. That's right, as soon as possible. That may be interpreted by some as a few hours or by others to mean a few weeks, and it's totally unclear. Line 23 on page 1 simply removes as soon as possible and replaces it with language requiring that an oral report must be made within 24 hours after there is suspicion of child abuse.
The measure would also require that initial reports of abuse cannot be altered. Senate Bill 442 passed 54-0 and goes to the House.
The Senate Judiciary Committee today passed Amy's Law. Up until last week, police thought that an 8-year-old girl named Amy Yates was murdered by a 12-year-old boy. Under current law, someone under the age of 13 who commits murder cannot be held in juvenile detention for more than 2 years. However, lesser crimes can mean up to 5 years. Recently, law enforcement has learned that an older teen may have actually committed that crime, but the bill's sponsor, Senator Bill Hamrick, says that a change is still needed, just in case.
If that were the case, you'd be dealing with a 16-year-old, and that's covered by by Senate Bill 440, which puts them into the adult system, so that it's only relevant when you're under 13. But they're trying to resolve that issue, and my last conversation with the sheriff was that they were not confident that the new confession was accurate, but they are doing some testing to try to resolve that. But in spite of that, in spite of the facts of that case, we still have a situation where if you're under 13 and you commit a serious crime, you're treated less seriously than if you commit some others, and that's what we want to correct with this bill.
Sandra Michaels of the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers hoped the committee would exempt children under 11 from this bill, saying they shouldn't face the same consequences at these earlier ages.
For a child under the age of 10, it's very unusual for them to engage in serious crimes, and if they do, that the norm shouldn't be expected that juveniles are engaging in violent acts at a younger age, but that there's something seriously wrong with that particular child, and that treatment, as opposed to an incarceration in the Department of Juvenile Justice, would be more appropriate.
Senate Bill 522 would not require mandatory sentencing, but would allow judges to use their own discretion in sentencing more severe offenders up until their 21st birthday.
Some Democrats in the state legislature want Walmart to take more responsibility for their employees. They say the state is picking up the tab when Walmart doesn't provide health insurance for those employees. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us live with more on that story. Jesse.
Well, Gerald, Representative Nan Orrock says that 6.2% of all children on Georgia's Peach Care rolls are dependents of Walmart employees. She says she has a bill that will make the company pay up.
We are keenly aware that our health care costs are skyrocketing. At the same time, there are large corporations who are not paying their fair share. We discovered that in the year 2002 in Georgia, there were more than 10,000 dependents of Walmart employees on our Peach Care for Kids health insurance program.
What this bill specifically would do is require employers with 10,000 employees or more to pay at least 8% of their total wages for health care. Nonprofit employers would also be required to pay, but only 6%. These companies would pay into a trust fund, and that trust fund would go to help fund affordable health care for our children.
In 30 states across the United States, this type of legislation has been introduced or will be introduced this year. It is a bill that we feel that is time where we try to get out of the box. We have seen that the National Congress of the United States failed to recognize the seriousness of health care coverage and the cost of health care. Since they don't seem to be able to come up with an answer, we here in Georgia believe this is a fair bill. It's for businesses, it's also for workers, but more importantly, it's for kids.
Now, also a spokesperson for Walmart says that employers like Walmart are good for working families. More than 3/4 of our associates have health insurance. Representative Orrock and Senator Steen Miles have filed similar bills in both their respective chambers. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Senate Majority Leader Tommy Williams says he thinks his Bible bill would pass any court test. The Senate has passed the Williams bill, which would allow Georgia public school students to study the Bible as history and literature.
The Bible is now being taught in 38 states. One cannot teach it for indoctrination or as a devotion, and it is working in other states. Georgia has just not approved it as an elective. So once it's approved, we have in our bill the constitutional protections that, and we will teach teachers how to teach this course without crossing those constitutional lines. There have been many challenges in the Supreme Court, and they have ruled as to how a course can be taught. And basically, we teach it as history literature, not for indoctrination.
Senator Williams also defended what he considers to be a need for a Bible course, saying many students are unaware of the impact of the Bible on society.
Our laws, our judicial system is all wrapped up in the Judeo-Christian ethic, and that comes from the study of the Bible and the knowledge of the Bible. I don't know how anyone could understand Michelangelo's Pietà or Leonardo's Last Supper or Handel's Messiah or any number of great works of art without knowing the story behind the painting or the sculpture. It's just our world is replete with influences that the Bible has created, and And our students are illiterate about the Bible. I mean, if you were to ask a student today, where does this Good Samaritan law come from? They really wouldn't know that this is a real story, or the wisdom of Solomon, or any number of, the 23rd Psalm that's often quoted, but, you'd have kids that didn't know where that came from. So I think it's important to have this base of knowledge.
Again, Senator Williams' Bible bill has already passed the Senate and is awaiting action in the House.
Governor Sonny Perdue's faith-based funding initiative was reintroduced in the House today. The proposed constitutional amendment, which stalled in the General Assembly last year, would allow religious communities to apply for state funding. House Majority Leader Jerry Keene told reporters that he hopes the bill will fare better this year.
I just think it's a common-sense initiative that allows the state to use best practices when it's bidding or contracting for services. And if we have a faith-based institution that's addressing needs, whether it's in health care, whether it's in family needs, whether it's in some type of counseling for substance abuse, why shouldn't the state be able to go to that vendor or to the provider of that services at a cost-effective basis? And right now we're prevented from doing that. So again, I think I hope this won't fall prey to partisan politics. But it is an election year, and sometimes those things happen.
Representative Keene said that the House will also consider a plan to track international money transfers, but Representative Keene stopped short of calling that bill an immigration reform measure.
It's a way to identify some funds to help our hospitals with indigent health care. We know that one of the largest drains on the resources of our hospitals, and Chairman Brown from that Appropriations Subcommittee is in the room, it's a tremendous strain on them to serve this population who come to the emergency rooms for a lot of different reasons. And so the bill that you're talking about actually is a way to perhaps identify some resources that could then be given back to the hospitals to help offset their expenses, which right now they have no other way to recover. So I don't know that I'd call that part of the immigration package as much of part of an appropriations aspect to help solve some of our health care issues.
Meanwhile, medical professionals and students rallied outside the Capitol today. They want any immigration reform that the legislature may pass to not restrict their obligation to help patients. They say the current form of Senate Bill 529 would not permit them to help undocumented residents who need attention.
We know that healthy children need healthy families, and asking for citizenship documents will create a climate of fear and discourage parents from taking their children to clinics for primary care and for vaccinations.
It would make immigration officers out of all healthcare professionals trying to catch people who aren't supposed to be here and make us into something that we really don't want to be.
The thing that scares me about this, too, is a family with a child, 4-month-old, maybe a 6-month-old child running 103 fever, but yet the parents are undocumented, and that mother wants that child cared for. Yet for fear of being deported or fear of being thrown in jail or fear of being found out, she's not going to bring her child to see me.
I am a Fulton County resident, a medical student at UCLA, and a current Emory University MBA student. I am also the son of illegal immigrants who became legal residents in 1987.
We are there to provide health care, primary health care, to all patients regardless, and we will not ask what their status is at the time that they come to get care.
After the rally, medical students lobbied legislators to exempt health care from Senate Bill 529. That immigration bill is sponsored by Senator Chip Rogers. Rogers said he respects their wishes to treat anyone who comes to their door. He says the health care community already has to verify state residency and other criteria before extending benefits to any patient. He says legal residents should be no different.
Today's rally followed an even larger rally yesterday at the Capitol. Supporters of both sides of the immigration issue faced off on Sunday. Leaders from the Georgia Association of Latino Elected Officials hosted over 100 supporters on the steps of the Capitol. The group heard from State Senator Sam Zamarripa and others. They spoke out against SB 529. Across Washington Street, supporters of Senate Bill 529 held signs and chanted anti-immigration messages. Both rallies concluded peacefully.
In his weekly news briefing, Senate Majority Leader Tommy Williams said Georgia needs a strong eminent domain law that puts private property owners first.
We want a strong measure sent out, and we're going to advocate for a strong measure. I think the governor has made part of his bill very strong, and you can tell that by who's reacting to it. You know, if the realtors are happy with it, and GMA is not real happy with it, so you know when that happens that you've stepped on some toes. And so we're hoping that some of those strong measures stay in the House, and that we can get in a conference committee at some point in time and strengthen the bill even more. But it's such a complicated issue, you're never going to have 100% of the people in favor of it. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but in light of what the Supreme Court did, we're going to try to err on the side of the property owner.
And Senator Williams cited a Stockbridge case as an example of the abuse of eminent domain. Owners of a floor shop in Stockbridge say the city is trying to unfairly condemn their property by declaring it blighted.
Oh, way too much power. That's just downright evil, in my opinion, what's been done to that family out there. There's no way to describe that as blight, and I think under a new definition of blight, if we go there, they would have much more due process, and that property could not be described as blight.
In other news, the House today agreed to update the Pharmaceutical Code. House Speaker Glenn Richardson questioned bill sponsor Ron Stevens, who is a pharmacist, about why this has to be done each year.
Every year, drugs move from a prescription basis to a non-prescription basis, and rarely the other way around. And we also have drugs that move from one particular class to another. Drugs and Narcotic Agency and even the DEA may decide that a drug is much more addictive than they originally thought. And that's the whole purpose from a class 2, 3, 4, and 5 is for that specific purpose. Class 1, if you'll notice here with methamphetamine and this magic mushroom, which is a psychedelic drug, those are drugs that are very highly addictive but have no medical use whatsoever.
House Bill 1054 passed without opposition and now goes to the Senate. The House also agreed to increase the retirement benefits for teachers who retired before 1987. Representative Brooks Coleman explains.
Teachers who retired 1974 and before, they were making a very small salary, about $3,000 to $4,000 a year was their salary. Their retirement base is very, very small that they receive on a $3,000 to $4,000 salary. There are 821 of these teachers. Their average age is 93. 93 is their average age. Their current benefit is $1,300. That's what they get. And we're trying to bump that base up 10% to give them enough where they can almost pay their insurance.
House Bill 400 increases the payments by 6% for teachers who retired between 1974 and 1982, and by 2% for those who retired between 1982 and 1987. The bill passed without dissent and now goes to the Senate.
Senator Brian Kemp thinks the state needs to start encouraging the use of biodiesel, a fuel derived from vegetable oils or animal fats. The Senate agreed and today passed his biodiesel bill.
This is an issue about national security. The more energy independent we become, the safer our country will be. This is a simple bill, and it proposes that all governments in Georgia, state and local, work together. In Section 1 of the bill, we're going to be requiring that our public schools, that they purchase at least 2% of biodiesel. Sections 2 and 3 are the same, basically mentioning our county and local governments and consolidated governments, and then our state vehicles. In the committee, there was a concern about this being a mandate, and we worked with ACCG and GMA to amend the bill in committee to basically say that this fuel would have to be available and that it would not exceed 5% of the cost of conventional fuel, so that we're not passing an unfunded mandate.
The biodiesel bill, Senate Bill 453, passed 52-4. If passed by the House and signed by the governor, it would take effect in 2008.
The House postponed decision today on a measure to monitor the driving habits of teenagers. House Bill 1069 would allow parents to pay a monthly fee to have their children tracked by a monitoring service or GPS device. Representative Jeff Brown, who lost the child in an automobile accident, explains the need for the measure, which was not without its detractors.
Personally, and I'll grant you that I've got far more vested in this than you do, but you still have children that are alive. And you still have some that are teenagers, and you have some that are terrible drivers, and you don't know about it. We don't have much in the way of driver's education in this state. I think that's a debacle. To me, this is something that we can do for our children. It's voluntary. Let me stress that again. It is voluntary until they've committed offense, and then you use the discretion of the judge.
This is not the right way to do it. For example, on line 29, where it refers to possession of illegal drugs in vehicle, that's not an offense. It's not an offense. If you possess marijuana, that's the offense when reference to the code section. But possession of drugs, illegal drugs in a vehicle is not an offense.
This is a way to get at the problem and to hopefully give one more kid another life for another day. Yes, there may be some construct problems in the bill. I'm not a lawyer and therefore not as skilled as Mr. Bordeaux in answering those questions, but I assume that Legislative Counsel has drawn this, and I assume that Legislative Counsel understands what should be in the law.
Following 30 minutes of debate, the House decided to table House Bill 1069.
A bill that would repeal the helmet law for motorcyclists under certain conditions was discussed in a House subcommittee on motor vehicles today. House Bill 875 is proposed by Representative Bill Hembry, who says the bill would allow bikers the freedom of choice.
But basically, it's giving the freedom of motorcycle riders in the state of Georgia to choose whether or not they want to use a helmet in the course of riding their bikes. It says if a motorcycle operator or any passenger is covered by an insurance policy providing for at least $10,000 in medical benefits for injuries incurred as a result of a crash while operating or riding a motorcycle. And then
on behalf of Georgia's taxpayers and on behalf of common sense, I hope that you will vote against this bill. The stakes are very high. The decision is difficult. I respect the strong feelings of the folks in this room, but we have equally strong feelings. One of the speakers said, why does it matter and it's only our lives are involved? I'm the one that has looked into a young woman's eyes and told her that her husband is dying from a severe brain injury from a motorcycle crash, and she's holding 2 young kids to her side. I don't like telling that to anybody. Don't make me tell that story more often than I do now.
The helmet issue is being held over in the subcommittee for further discussion.
Today, Governor Sonny Perdue addressed the Georgia Rural Development Leadership Council and 4-H clubs from across the state. He discussed the importance of personal and economic development.
You'll never earn less by investing in yourself. And I know that's what the programs that we have for our youth, that's what you youth leaders are here about, getting young people to invest in themselves and adding value along the way. That's what 4-H is all about. That's what FFA is all about. It's about investing in yourself. And also, secondly, investing in our state. And that's also the mission of the Rural Development Council. And that's why we've asked these people to assemble to help give us the ideas out in Georgia where we live to ensure that job growth opportunities and quality of life that we want reaches every community in every part of our state.
The Rural Development Council provides grants to communities to promote leadership development. Well, a new website designed to help Georgians remember those killed in automobile accidents was launched by the Governor's Office of Highway Safety today. Katie Eubanks has more on this story.
Project FACES, or Fatalities Are Crashes Ending Smiles, is an initiative of the Governor's Office of Highway Safety to provide a website for family members to post photographs of loved ones lost in accidents on Georgia's highways. Marking the website's debut, over 1,600 empty picture frames lined the sidewalk outside the Capitol this morning, each in honor of a person lost. GOHS Director Bob Dallas explains.
And what we're trying to do is to let people put up the smiling faces of their loved ones
so the rest of us can see what it means to lose a loved one, because they're just like us. They're just like us.
The first 2 photographs of crash victims have already been posted on the Georgia Faces webpage, and many more are expected to follow. Angelo Sykes, who lost his son and mother-in-law in a crash, plans to submit their photos soon.
There's no other greater pain than losing your child, and if you can just spread the word and just let people see that when they take that chance, that they're affecting other people's lives, and it's just devastating. We just want to just not let our families' lives be in vain.
To view Project Faces, go to www.georgiahighwaySafety.org/georgiafaces.html. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Katie Eubanks.
The State Senate today paid tribute to Frank Eldridge, the longtime Secretary of the Senate and former state senator, died earlier this month.
He was an unusual and very, very successful man, a unique individual, an individual who dedicated his entire life to public service and made many, many sacrifices to serve this state.
I heard a man say one time that if you got one person you can call friend, you're lucky. I call Frank friend.
I don't ever recall going to him with a problem. And the duties that I had as chairman of committees and as president pro tem, that he did respond willingly, lovingly.
Today we take this time to express to Frank and his family that we will never forget him. All the wonderful things he did for the state Senate of Georgia.
Because of him, we should be better. We should be stronger. And if each and every one of us would treat each other the way Frank treated us, the way God would want us to treat each other, we all would be so much better.
Frank had old-fashioned integrity, and he extended that to us. Frank, you were the best. God blessed us by having your lasting imprint on the Senate and the history of Georgia. And to the Eldridge family, thank you for sharing Frank with us.
Well, coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, we'll continue our Tuesday leadership series with interviews from Senate leadership. Majority Leader Tommy Williams and Minority Leader Robert Brown will talk about their respective legislative priorities. All that and the latest from under the Gold Dome tomorrow night at 7. Coming up Tuesday on GPB, be sure to tune in for a special Frontline about the meth epidemic. That's at 9. And then stay tuned for our own David Zelski's documentary, The Georgia Meth Invasion, at 10. If you missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. Now stay tuned for Antiques Roadshow FYI. That's coming up next here on GPB.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 17th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Nwandi Lawson. Thanks so much for joining us and have a great evening.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.